Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1709. Cross that one off. A week in review. So I thought, we've had a pretty busy week this week. So I thought I would just recap what we touched on this week and let you know of some stuff that's coming up. So first of all, we on Monday we looked at, hang on, where did my list go? Hang on, I have a list. Where's my list? It's on a piece of paper here. Yes, I still use pen and paper. Zippy just went and got her toy. She's like, "You're not taking me for a walk?" We go. Really? Yeah, you're not taking me for a walk, then I'm going to play. Okay, so on Monday we talked about, saying I do in newspapers. We started looking at some of the historic newspapers and picked a time period a wee ways back just to see what sort of information was given, because some of it has changed over time, some of it has basically stayed the same. But I wanted to go back in time, and we're looking like the late 1800s to early 1900s, simply because I didn't want to expose living people to this. So it's always good to use the dead. I know it sounds bad, but when you're doing demonstrations on genealogy, it's always good to go back to your ancestors that have passed, and talk about them, their lives, and things like that. It just makes it easier, and you're not then infringing on somebody who is alive in their lives. So anyway, so we looked at I-do's and the different information that you could find in marriage announcements. So there was the announcements, which is a short little piece. It could be an announcement that they've got their marriage license was issued, and it's just got the bride's name, the groom's name, maybe their ages, and then by the newspaper you can see where it was issued. Now, looking at the newspapers that they're in, this can give you, especially for licenses, because it's what was issued within that county, not what was issued in another state or another city or another county, but in that county. So that can narrow that down a bit when you're looking at for marriage information. And we looked through about how you can pull out information from the license registration, the license issued notices to the marriage notices, which could have the things like John Smith married Susie Lou on, and then the date, and that's it. They may put the destination. That's about as minimal as you will get, all the way through to the articles that list, this is the couple that got married, this is who their parents are, this is where they went to school. Actually, we didn't find one with that. But if I find one, I will show you, because it's really kind of pretty cool. It's got like, this is who the bride is, this is who the groom is, this is who their parents are. We'll have their parents' names in there. It will have the list of the wedding party in there, which we did find this portion, the wedding party, and how the wedding party is related to the bride or groom, depending which side they're on. That may be there in there as well. Sometimes you can tell by the name whether it's going to be, it might be a sibling or a cousin if they've got the same last name. Then you can get ones that then go on to where they went to school. If they went to college, what college did they go to? What degrees did they get? Where they're going to be living where are they going for their honeymoon? May also be in there too, as well as where they're going to be living when they get back. And then in between there, you've got the description of the bride's dress, what the bridesmaids were wearing, the flower girl was wearing, what the maid of honor was wearing, what the groom was wearing, what his groomsmen were wearing, what the ushers were wearing. So you get all that. And then if it's a very big article, you will probably have a list of all the guests that were in attendance as well. And it may say family members, and then friends, acquaintances of the bride's parents, acquaintances of the groom's. I have seen very detailed wedding announcements. I'm going to see if I can find one so I can just show you just how much information they've put in there. And then we talked about mining that information to help us build a family group sheet of possible siblings, and all that sort of thing, as well as where we can go and find more information. Like it'll have the church list, the place listed where they got married. So now we can go look at the church records, the temple records, those sorts of things, through to where their marriage license may have been issued, getting copies of their marriage license, getting copies of the marriage certificate. If they were in churches that require banns to be read, what you can find the parish records for when the banns were read. So there's a lot of information that you can gather just from the I-do's. And then you can also find articles too on weddings during that time period. Like they may have hints and tips for for weddings. They may have advertisements for locations, for caterers, for officiants, maybe in there as well. So you can go through the other marriage stuff, which we didn't actually go and have a look at, but you could find articles in there on planning a wedding, picking a wedding venue, things like that they're going to need. Oh, here's a bridal shop. What is their fashion? And they may have illustrations there, so you get to see what the fashion was like at the time. And these were developed more over the years where you've got these articles and things on how to choose a venue, how to choose an officiant, how to choose this, how to choose that, how to plan a wedding, things like information about weddings as well. So that information about weddings will also give you a glimpse into what it was like during those times, as well as what was latest fashion trends. You may have a sketch there of a bride in a dress. What did a dress look like? I will tell you this. I actually got to participate when I was a teenager. I actually got to participate in a wedding show, and it was a competition. So there's a woman who had gotten married, and were now modeling their wedding dress, and they had to have been married within the past year. They had dates from this date to this date, and it was a 12-month period that they had to be married in. They had to submit their wedding photographs, and then they came in and they got all dressed up in their wedding attire again with the full regalia, and then they got to walk along the catwalk, and we had a raised platform and everything else. I came into it because what they did is the halftime show, if you want to call it that, the halftime show was a fashion show of bride dresses from the past. And because there was I was coaching gymnastics at the time during my teenage years, and the secretary of our gymnastics club, she had a wedding dress that she could no longer fit. I happened to be the right size to fit her wedding dress. So I got to parade her wedding dress, and I had to carry a little plaque that said what year it was from. And, it was like it was a fashion show because they were talking about the dress, what it was made of. And the secretary got to wear a dress from 1920s, which was really cool. And so we had these different wedding style dresses from different periods. And we did this fashion show of bride dresses through the years. It was fantastic. It was a fun evening. It was totally awesome. We got all done up, got the dresses put on and everything else. And it was I wonder if I still have photographs from that. I don't know if I still have photographs. I must have, because I know I took a picture of the secretary in the dress from 1920s. It was a little ripped in places, but you still got the idea of what it looked like. And so that was a really cool thing that we got to participate. Now that was written up in the local newspaper, that whole thing about the wedding show, and who was crowned the best dressed bride. I don't even know who was crowned the queen of the brides. I don't know. Somebody won the competition for the fashion from the last 12 months. So it was whoever won that. And of course they had to be wearing their own wedding dresses for that. They could, and if they couldn't get into their wedding dress, of course they couldn't participate in the competition. And so and then they talked about the brides of yesteryear. So that was pretty cool. Doing that. So, you can find articles like that about these bridal shows, these competitions where they actually wear their wedding dresses again. So that's kind of fun. So that was Monday. We talked about the I do's, and you just got a little bit of extra stuff. Then on Tuesday, we talked about the last words. So we were looking at obituaries and how brief they can be and how long they can be. And there are some very long ones out there, which are really, really cool to read. There's one I would absolutely love to show you guys, but I can't because the grandchildren are named, and the grandchildren will happen to be alive right now. So yes, we can't show that one, but it was a really cool one. And based on what the person's life was like as well, they may go into a description of what their careers were, if they worked for one company for a particularly long time, if they served the community, if they were a politician, if they were a councilman, if they were the mayor of the city. They had all these write-ups and everything else. If they were in the military, that was in there as well. I love reading those ones. Because sometimes in the ones that served in the military, they talk about the medals that they won, that they were awarded, about their awards and stuff. And some of the stories and they will actually go into some of the stories, or they will make reference to it, and then you can go and look up the stories. And that was kind of cool those are really cool ones to read. Sorry, I just have a love for the military, military first responders. So, you know, I even look up those articles too, because they get awards too. The police, the firemen, they all get awards as well. Those first responders all get given awards too. So yeah, so looking at obituaries, what information can you glean from there? And most of the obituaries will say survived by, and then it will have their spouse, if their spouse is still alive, any children that are still living, any siblings, if their parents are still alive, and then it might just end that they had 27 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. In some cases, they will list the grandchildren simply because they will list some of the grandchildren simply because there was, you know, there might have only been like 3 or 4 of them. So it's just easy to put their names in and that sort of thing as well. Some of the times that you will get on the obituaries, you will actually get the name of the child, and in parentheses, it will have the spouse's first name. And judged by the last name, you can tell whether, you know, whether it's woman. If it's a woman, it'll have her married name, and in parentheses, it will have her husband's first name. And then for the men, it will be the other way around. So you don't know what the wife's maiden name was, because she'll just be listed there in parentheses. But, you know, you can get a lot of information out of there as well. And then that now gives you information that you can go and look up to see, is there a death certificate that I can go and pull and have a look at? And we talked about the importance of death certificates as well, because of the information that you can get off them, especially the cause of death, because the cause of death can actually show that there may be a pattern through the family of heart disease, of diabetes, of cancer, that sort of thing. So you can look for these, you know, Alzheimer's, dementia, all of that sort of stuff could be listed in there as well. Now, you do have to be cautious, because on some ones, like in the early 1900s into the late 1800s, that when they did do that, if they were doing death certificates and they put the cause of death, they may not have known of certain types of cancer at the time. So, you know, we don't know. They may list it as something else. So you have to sort of think now, given the other family history of what people passed from and had underlying causes, is there a possibility that that particular illness that person had may have been cancer, but it wasn't known as a cancer at the time? It was thought of to be something else, because as time has changed, testing has changed as well, and they've been able to detect different things. So there's those sorts of things you've got to look for as well. So that's what we looked at with the obituaries, and the obituaries will also give the funeral information, where they were being interred, if it was a burial. So that gives you more information. So now you can go and look up the plot, and I will tell you, plot information. Oh my gosh, I don't know about US cemeteries, because I haven't gone asking in US cemeteries about this, but in New Zealand cemeteries, you can go to either the local council office, or if the cemetery is large enough, they may have an office at the cemetery. But you can go to either the local council office or the cemetery office, and you can ask, first of all, ask them, where do I find the graves? I know these people are here. I've looked up the records and it says they're on this particular plot. Where do I find that? And they will show you the map. And I go, and may I have a look at and is it possible for me to have a look at the plot records? And they will pull up the plot records. They will even print them out for you. And they'll mark on this little map where the grave is and everything else. You can go there. But the cool thing about the plot records, it shows who purchased the plot, who is buried in the plot, who has ashes interred in whether it's a body burial or an ash burial, how many times over the year, you know, the different dates that the plot was opened and why it was open. Was the plot opened to bury a coffin, or was it opened to inter ashes? So there's those sorts of details in there too. And then it will have what's on the headstone. And what's on the headstone may not represent everybody that's in the plot. So you find out all this other information in there as well. It's like, I never knew where my great-grandparents were buried. And it turns out their ashes are in with their daughter. And she was the only one name that was on the tombstone was their daughter, who passed when she was six or 8. And so my great-grandparents, their ashes are interred in her plot. But there was, at the time, there was nothing there to state that their ashes were in there. I think now they have a separate plaque that's there that states that the parents of the child are in there. But at the time they didn't have that information. We found that out by, this was really funny. We go to the cemetery. We're busy looking around for my great aunt's plot, and this guy comes up, and he happened to be the caretaker of the cemetery, and it's now a closed cemetery, so they don't put any more burials in there, but that still gets maintained in there. And he's got a huge job ahead of him. It was very overgrown. Fortunately, the area we wanted was where it had all been cleaned up, and he was slowly working his way towards the back of the cemetery and cleaning this up. And some of it was very, very overgrown. And so he came up and started talking to us and asked us what we wanted. And I said, oh, that's right, because we've been to the council office and looked up the records for my great-grandparents and found out that they were at the cemetery. So we're up there and we're like looking for this information. We had the number of the thing. And he says, well, hang on, he says, I have a map, because they didn't give us a map at the council office. He says, they just gave us a printout. I have a map at my house, and my house is just right there, and it was literally across the road from the gate. And he says, let me go over there and pull out the map, and we'll come over here and we'll see if we can help you find it. So while he's off doing that, we actually found my great-aunt's grave. And then he came back and he had information on his plot records that that's where my great-grandparents were, because that's what I had on my little piece of paper that the council had given me as well. But it was interesting just talking to him and about the upkeep of the cemetery and what he has to do, and how bad it was when he took over being the caretaker of the cemetery, and how much work and he talked about all the work that he's done so far and how much he's got to go, and that it's a closed cemetery. And so we got a lot of history about that area and the cemetery and who's buried in there and what families are buried in there and what families have multiple plots in there. They're all, one local family was prominent, and they've got several grave sites within the cemetery. So it was very interesting to talk to. So you can find out information, like I said, on there, but I'm getting so sidetracked. Focus. So obituaries will give you funeral information, burial information, where they're being buried, so you can then go on to something like Find a Grave or Billion Graves or Find a Grave, and look up that cemetery and see if they're in there. They may or may not be recorded. So Find a Grave is done by volunteers that go out and take photos of the grave sites, of anything that's on the grave, like headstones, tombstones, all of that sort of stuff, or if they're in a crypt, and the plaques and all of that sort of thing. And they will have also on there too what the name of the cemetery is and the record for that particular plot, the record number that's on Find a Grave. And then it will have the plot information of what section it's in, what row it's in, what plot number it is. And so you can take that information, if you're going to visit the cemetery, take it to the cemetery office and say, I'm looking for these people. According to Find a Grave, this is where they're buried. And some people will even go a little further. Some of the volunteers will go a little further, and they will link different sites within the cemetery to each other because they're all of the same family. And you do have to be careful with those. There have been times that I have found mistakes where they've turned and says, oh, this is the couple here, and here are their children. I'm like, that ain't the couple. That's the guy I'm looking for. That's his gravestone. But that's not who's in it. But that was not his wife's name. But they had all the children left, and I'm like, he may have gotten. So that told me that he may have gotten married again, and I hadn't found that second marriage record. So I took that information, went and searched, and yes, he had been married again. But what the person who did who put that entry into the Find a Grave site, because at the cemetery I think it was on the back of the tombstone. His information was on one side and her information was on the back, but it wasn't his first wife, that information that was there, who were the mother of his children. It was the second wife, who was the step parent to the children. And so that gave me a clue that, oh, maybe he's been married again. So I went and looked up, and sure enough, I found a marriage. I found all the marriage information for them in the newspaper, as well as being able to go and find the actual records as well, to see that, he did actually get married again when he got married again, and that sort of thing. And that he had no children with the second wife. All the children listed as him and his wife's were actually him and his first wife's. So you do have to be cautious pulling up information like that. Some of the information on there is completely accurate, and some of it's not. So you just got to be very cautious with it. It's one of those things that you got to look at and go, okay, let me use this as hints. And then you go, and one time I went in there and I was like, they've got 10 children. I don't think they had 10 children, because I'd been through the census reports. I had been through different birth announcements and things, baptismal records. I found the church where all their kids were baptized. And I'm like, I only have 7 kids listed. This has got 10. And this family was in this church their entire lives. Like the parents were born and baptized in that church, and baptized/christened in the church. Then they got married in the church, and then their children all got christened/baptized in that church as well. So there was a long history there with that church, with these children, this couple, and their parents had also been christened and married in that same church as well. So you had mum and dad, their son and daughter-in-law, who were all raised within that church, and then their children, then the grandchildren. And and so I'm like looking at this going, I don't think that's correct. And they're all buried in the churchyard. And I'm sort of like, I don't think that's correct. I don't think they had that many children. And went researching and couldn't find, that was the only place on Find a Grave that these other 3 children were mentioned. I could find no record of them anywhere else within that community where those people lived, were born, raised, and died. They never moved out of the county. The census reports has confirmed that, they were there in that area every 10 years in the same address and everything else. And so I'm sort of like, I think somebody's got the wrong family here. But because of the last name, of course, being Eakins, which is the name we researched this week, being about as common as Smith at times. And I will tell you, there has been a John Eakins. I had to, over a 5-year period, I put the year I strongly suspected he was born. What did I have? I had some document that said it when he was born, and I wanted to verify because I didn't have any other records. It was one of those records that's not a primary, it wasn't a primary source. And so I thought, okay. So I put that year that they had in there, and then I'd searched 2 years each side. Because I've usually found the error is within, if there is going to be an error in the years, like if the census report says that he was born around 1893, it could be 1892, it could be 1894, depending on when his birthday is in relation to when the census was done. So I always put that way. So this time I was looking for 2 years either side, and I had to go through 183 John Eakins in this one area that was born within this that were born within that 5-year period. 183 of them. It took me 2.5 years. Yeah, 2.5 years to find the right one. And I am still pretty sure to this day that I probably, because as I was going through the records, I was finding records in different places. So I may very well have done more, have researched some of them twice in 2 different areas. So that's quite possible. I doubled or maybe even tripled up on some of the people I was looking at. But there was 183 records that I looked through to find the one that fitted in my tree. Yeah, so you do have to be cautious, and you do have to take your time. And genealogy is not that person fits, click, that person fits, click. Yeah, no. Unless you are 100% certain, be sure, because if they have the same first name, and like you may even look up like, oh, we've got an unusual name, this will be easy, click, and then you find out that actually there was 2 of them. Yes, there was 2 of them. Or maybe even 3 of them that lived in the area that all had the same name. And now you've got to go back through that record, pull it completely clean it off, and start all over again. And I know from my earlier days with the when everything went online. Now, if I was in person and doing the research, it was much easier. I thought much easier to pull the records and see if they were the right person. Online, it's too easy to click. And I know this is why I no longer, when you're in Ancestry, they give you Ancestry family trees where other people's trees match up with your tree, and they have information on there that you don't have on there, or they're just matching it all up. I made the mistake one time very early on, like 20 years ago, where I went down. I went, okay, this is all the same information. They all match up and everything else. Okay, click, because it's another resource. Click it, and then all of a sudden, not only did it just put mum and dad, verified mum and dad information, the person I was researching, and their spouse and children, it also put in siblings of the person that I was researching. And I was like, there's 14 siblings. There's something wrong here. Because I was looking at the birth dates and looking at the mother's age, and the added on siblings were like, born when she was like 60, in her 50s and 60s. And I was like, yeah, somebody screwed up somewhere. And then I had to go back and unpick it all. And I know that there are other trees, there are other portions of my tree in there that I have to go back and clean up, because I made them. I also very early on, as I was learning this online stuff, made the mistake of merging two people that I thought was the same person, and it turned out to be the same name, the same birth year, the same birth location, two different families. And now I've got them merged as one guy. So I now have to go back and find that George Eakins guy and sort him out, like separate him again. So I know that going back into the early 1800s, late 1700s, that there are mistakes in my tree. But I have learned over the years through the hard way on how to be very, very cautious when you are evaluating information and trying to find out if they're part of the same family, are they a different person, what indicators are there. So when you're taking information, I just suddenly thought, how did I get on this? So when you're looking at information that's like on places like Find a Grave and stuff, double check before you go, oh, there's all the children listed, write them all down and then go put them in your tree, because they may not all be their children. Yes. Now, some people have done a very good job of researching. I will say that. They have done a very good job of researching and putting that extra information. And I like the fact that people are taking the time to go and make those connections, especially if the people are in the same cemetery, and making those connections. I like the fact that they're doing that. Some of them just need to be a little more cautious about the information that they put there. But on the most part, I have found that the information is correct once I have researched it. So I will take notes and have them off. And I've got there's a big pile down here on the floor, pages of notes of things I have to go and research to verify, are these people belong to? And even if I know that the information is correct because it matches up with what's in my tree, I still take the time to go and research, because when you click on a name, it then takes you to another area where so you got the parents, here's their children, here's their parents. So you click on one of their children and it takes you, oh, this is who this person got married to and here are their kids. Is that information also correct? Or is it, so you got to be just cautious and do your own. And even if I get clients coming to me and say, well, I've done this work on my tree, I'm now trying to find this level, I still have to go through, because it would be one, I have to, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do my job correctly. I have to make sure the information I've been given is correct. So I will actually go through the information that they already have in their tree to verify the information that's there. Once that information is verified, now I can go and research and look for the clues that I need to answer the question that they have. Like, is this John Smith the one that fits into my tree that was born in this year? Is he the father? Or who is the father of John Smith? And John Smith was born, and you got the year, the date, the place, and all of that sort of stuff. So now you got to go find who is his father. So always research before you accept anything, especially now, because I've noticed for a couple of years now, it's been a couple of years, Ancestry now anticipate that this could be the potential. They now put on the tree these little green boxes that say potential father, potential mother, but they don't put any details there. And I'm like, okay, you think that those people are the parents? Are they really the parents? So now I have to form the question is, this is John Smith, who was born this year in this date and place, and he got married to this person, and they had this many children. So now I have to go back and see if I can find his baptismal record based on the time. Find his baptismal record, who are the parents that were listed on that. Can I find other information that tells, like, marriage stuff? Marriage certificates may have the father's name and occupation. Marriage records may have, or have list, in most countries will list the father and his occupation on there. It wasn't till years later the mother's name that was added, because in the time period I'm looking, it was all men. They only listed the men, the fathers. And so then I'd have to go and match that up. Does that fit with that person? And And so now I've got this potential father. Okay, what information do they have? And unfortunately, they don't give you a lot. They say, well, here's 10 records, and you click to see what the 10 records are, and it doesn't give you a lot of information. So now I've got to go find out what that information is and verify that that's the right person. And then I manually type in their name. I don't accept their little thing because I can't fully see all their records, or I can't find the records that they refer to. So I manually type in the information, and now I can go search those records because he's now in the system. The hints will come up, and I'll go look at the hints. Is it not? Now I've got that hint there, so I need to match another one with it to collaborate. No, confirm. So yeah, there's a whole researching thing, which I absolutely love because I love solving mysteries. Anyway, so that was that was Tuesday. Wednesday, oh my gosh, taking too long. Wednesday, we looked at other news. So this was anything outside of marriage records, anything outside of obituaries. We're now looking, we're looking at the society news, where we found one of the Eakins guys, Chaz W. Eakins, when he moved back to the area that he was originally living in. It's put that, he's now back. He's living on Genesee Street and may have had the helpful address there. We found the article of the family that where the husband had killed his wife, shot the mother-in-law, shot his sister-in-law, and then committed suicide. So we had that whole news article, which had a whole bunch of family information in there that you could mine. And then at the bottom of it, it had his obituary, who he was survived by and who she was survived by. So actually, that was interesting. I'll go back and check that because it just suddenly occurred to me now. On her, when they listed the wife's information, they said that she was survived by 2 sons. But I don't recall, and they were 2 years and 9 months and 1 year, a 1-year-old. But I don't recall those same children being listed for the husband. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, I have to go research because they should be his kids. You would assume they were his kids. Maybe, maybe not. I have to go back and find the marriage information now. But from that information, I can now go look up their marriage records and look up birth records or baptism records for their kids, see who the father was that's named on there as well. So there's other, there's certain places that you can go and look to find the names of these people, and then you just manually type in the information. If you are 100% sure the record that you are seeing is the correct record for that particular person, then yes, click, but not on the family tree stuff. No, if it says ancestral family tree, I always ignore, but I will use the information in there to possibly go and research who a parent is. And so it gives me trees that I can then go and compare with my tree to see where's the differences. Is there information that I'm missing? How do they know that that's the right person there? And I look at what sources they've got in there that gives them this information. And on one tree, I actually found just recently, I was looking at one tree and I thought, oh, what sources do they have? So I clicked on sources and went in there and went, they've got 2 marriage records in there for 2 completely different people that this person that they'd used as a source for the person by this name. And looking at the marriage information, I could tell that they were 2 separate, the same guys with the same name from the same area around the same age. And they were 2 completely different guys, and they had them in there as this one guy. So that was just recently I found that. So yeah, mistakes happen. People make mistakes. Some people get too eager. Some people will take for gospel what's online. Other people, gotta check. You gotta make sense. So that was our big newspaper thing that we did this week. And you can find, there'll be newspaper articles in there of if there was some historical event taking place, are your ancestors' names mentioned, or when did that historical event take place? Were your ancestors in that area that it took place? And could they have been a witness to that particular incident that happened or that event that happened? And so that gives you a glimpse into what their lives are like. So you can use that other news to learn more about the time that your ancestors were alive, more about what their lives would have been like at the time. And if you look at the advertisements, you'll find all the fashion trends, what the cars were like if you're into the car area. If I was into the cars, if the cars were now out and running. If the cars had already been invented and manufactured at that time, based on the time period you're looking at, maybe there could have been advertisements in there for train trips. You don't know until you go look. Fashion trends, and you can see different company. You follow a company through the newspaper, through their commercials, and see, oh, they went from dry goods, like grocery dry goods, like flour and stuff, to selling clothes. Complete change of scenery. Or was it the other way around? It was the Eakins family that we're looking at. They had that 3-name company, and Eakins was the last name. And Chaz W. Eakins worked at that company and went and sourced like flour and other dry goods. I remember flour and maple syrup were 2 of the things I remember. And I think if I remember correctly, they did the dry goods first, and then they switched from doing that to doing the clothing. And then that's when William Eakins started doing his tailoring from. Or maybe they could have done both at the same time and just phased out one to the other. You can find out that information. It's in the newspaper. Anyway, that's it. The weekly newsletter has just went out before we got online, and that is talking about weekly newspaper. Weekly newsletter has gone out, and that's talking about giving, looking through newspapers, the information that you can find and things like that. So it's all about the newspapers this week. And also on there too, and it's scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now, is coming up is the deadline to enter the drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card that we will be doing live on Wednesday, the 10th of April. We will be doing that live, a live drawing on the podcast. I've got the list going for the Wheel of Names, and for every product you purchase from the store, you will get one entry into the drawing. So if you buy 2 products, you get 2 entries. If you buy 10 products, you get 10 entries. If you buy 1 product, you get 1 entry. So it's going for, and I have to give a huge shout out to everybody who has supported us and gone in and purchased either a journal, a t-shirt, a different journal from the one that we had listed. We've had t-shirts being sold. I've had a coffee mug that got sold. So there's been different things that have been sold over the week, not just the Gratitude and Coffee journal. And the link that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now will take you to the actual journal, the Gratitude and Coffee journal. But if you go up the top, you can click on the different categories up there to see what other stuff that we have. So, you've got until midnight on April the 9th, which is Tuesday. So before you forget, go to before the Dirt Nap Shop, blah, 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 before the dirtnapshop.com and place your order. Okay. My goal is to sell at least 1 item a day. Well, actually, it was a journal, but yeah, we've been selling a journal a day. So we've been doing good. We're doing good. And I'm on day, what am I on? Day 25. In fact, I think the 9th is day 29. I think that's how it works out of my 30-day challenge. So I have to say, I am absolutely stoked and so grateful to everybody who has gone in and purchased and supported my 30-day challenge to sell at least 1 journal a day. So if you feel so inclined, please click the link. It's in the description below the video as well. Please click the link and go make a purchase. And some of you may even receive some private messages as well. So check your Facebook Messenger in case we've sent you a private message, or even your LinkedIn Messenger to see if we've sent you a message that way as well, because we've been private messaging people. So please go check those and see. And if you are so inclined, we would greatly appreciate your support. So that's it from us for this week. We're doing newspapers. Tomorrow night, I'm going to try and take one of the families that we had a look at during the week in the marriage and the death notices and create the tree from the information from those articles. And it's just going to be a very rough tree, but just so you can see how it all fits together and how we pulled that information out and where they got placed in the tree. So we'll be able to show you that. So anyway, that's it from us. We might even do a little bit of research as well before we go on the air so we can show you what we found. It's always fun to watch the process of how things are done. Anyway, that's it from us. Have a super fantastic sparkling evening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konara.